The emergency lights pulsed a dull red through Station 217's corridors as Director Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating before her. 37 ships had just emerged from hyperspace, their signals unmistakably bearing the markings of the Concordat, the most powerful alliance of spacefaring species in the known galaxy. The massive fleet hung in the darkness like a string of deadly pearls, surrounding the relatively tiny research station that had been humanity's furthest outpost for the past decade. "They're hailing us again, Director," Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported from his communications station, his dark eyes fixed on the incoming transmission. "Same message as before." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Concordat's demands had been clear. Surrender the station and all research materials, or face immediate destruction. They claimed humanity had ventured too far into protected space, though no such designation had ever been shared with Earth's diplomatic corps. But Sarah knew the real reason they were here. After all, you don't send 37 warships to eliminate a simple research station that had strayed off course. "How much longer does Dr. Patil need?" she asked, turning to face the station's chief of security, Maya Williams, whose dark skin seemed to absorb the pulsing emergency lights. 10 minutes, minimum," Maya responded, her hand resting instinctively on her sidearm. "Whatever they found in that artifact chamber, it's still powering up." 3 weeks ago, Station 217's deep space sensors had detected an anomalous energy signature emanating from a nearby asteroid. What they found inside had changed everything. A vast chamber of clearly artificial origin, filled with technology that defied their most advanced understanding of physics. Dr. Patel and his team had barely begun to scratch the surface of its mysteries when the Concordat arrived. "Director," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with tension. "They're giving us 5 minutes to comply before they open fire." Sarah moved to the center of the command deck, her footsteps echoing in the tense silence. The station's crew of 43, scientists, engineers, and security personnel, were all that stood between humanity and whatever secrets this ancient technology held. She knew the Concordat wouldn't just destroy them. They would erase every trace of humanity's discovery, ensuring Earth never learned what had been found here. "Send to all hands," she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to do. "This is Director Chen. The Concordat has demanded our surrender, claiming we violated their space. We know the truth. They're here because of what we found. Humanity has struggled for generations to be recognized as equals among the galactic community. We've been dismissed, patronized, and treated as little more than clever pets by species that achieved spaceflight before us." She paused, watching as the massive fleet began to shift formation, preparing for their attack. "But what we've discovered here could change everything. Dr. Patel believes this technology predates even the oldest known civilizations. The Concordat isn't here to protect their territory. They're here because they're afraid of what might happen if humanity gains access to something they don't control." The emergency lights suddenly shifted to a deep purple, and a low hum began to resonate through the station's superstructure. Whatever was happening in the artifact chamber was reaching a crescendo. "We all knew the risks when we signed up for this mission," Sarah continued. "We knew we might never see Earth again. But I never imagined we'd be in a position to change the course of human history. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. The escape pods are ready. But I intend to hold this station until Dr. Patil completes his work, regardless of the consequences." Maya stepped forward, her voice clear and determined. "Security team stands with you, Director." One by one, other voices joined in, scientists, engineers, technicians. Not a single crew member moved toward the escape pods. The hum from the artifact chamber grew louder, and Sarah's skin began to tingle with static electricity. The Concordat ships were moving into attack formation now, their weapons ports glowing with charged energy. "Rodriguez," Sarah ordered, "open a channel to the Concordat flagship." The lieutenant's fingers danced across his console, and a moment later, a holographic image materialized in the center of the command deck. The being that appeared was typical of the Concordat's ruling species, tall, with iridescent scales and multiple sets of eyes arranged in a pattern that humans found disconcerting. "This is High Commander Zextal," the being announced, its translator converting the clicking speech into Earth Standard. "Your time has expired. Surrender now, or we will open fire." Sarah stepped forward, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "This is Director Chen. We reject your demands. This station and its discoveries belong to humanity. If you want them, you'll have to destroy us all." The High Commander's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. "You cannot hope to survive against our fleet, Director. Your bravery is admirable, but futile. We know what you found, and we cannot allow your species to access such power. You are too young, too unpredictable." "Perhaps," Sarah replied, allowing herself a small smile. "But we're full of surprises." At that moment, Dr. Patel's voice crackled over the internal comm. "Director, it's activating. The whole chamber is coming online." The humming reached a fever pitch, and suddenly every display on the command deck began flickering with strange symbols. The artifact wasn't just powering up. It was interfacing with the station's systems, rewriting them with protocols that hadn't been used in millions of years. The High Commander's image showed the first signs of genuine concern. "What have you done?" "We haven't done anything," Sarah responded, watching in amazement as new information began flooding their databases. "We just woke something up, something that's been waiting for a very long time." The station shuddered, and a burst of energy unlike anything their sensors had ever detected began emanating from the artifact chamber. The Concordat ships nearest to the station began backing away, their sensors undoubtedly overwhelmed by readings they couldn't explain. As the energy field expanded, Sarah realized that Station 217 was no longer just humanity's furthest outpost. It was about to become something much more important, the first line of defense in a war humanity hadn't known it was destined to fight. "All hands," she called out, her voice firm with resolve. "Battle stations. Whatever happens next, we make our stand here." The Concordat fleet opened fire, and Station 217's last stand began. The first barrage from the Concordat fleet never reached Station 217. The energy field emanating from the artifact chamber absorbed the weapon's fire like a cosmic sponge, each impact causing ripples of blue-white light to cascade across its surface. On the command deck, Director Chen and her crew watched in stunned silence as their sensors struggled to make sense of what they were witnessing. "Dr. Patel," Sarah called over the comm, her eyes fixed on the swirling energy barrier. "I hope you have some answers for us." The scientist's voice came back breathless with excitement. "Director, it's extraordinary. The artifact isn't just a piece of technology. It's a node, a connection point to something vast. The energy field it's generating. It's not just defensive. It's trying to communicate." Maya Williams moved to the main tactical display, her security training pushing her to look for vulnerabilities. "The Concordat ships are repositioning. They're going to try to find a weak point in the field." As if in response to her observation, streams of data began flowing across every screen in the command center. But these weren't the alien symbols they'd seen earlier. They were changing, adapting, transforming into something readable. "It's learning our language," Rodriguez whispered, watching as English text began appearing in coherent patterns. "It's analyzing our databases and translating itself." A new voice filled the station, not through the comm system, but seemingly from the air itself. It was neither male nor female, young nor old, but it carried a weight of ages in its tone. "Criteria nenet, genetic marquee or as co-envefire. Enid. Initiating inheritance protocol." Sarah felt a tingling sensation at the base of her skull, and around her, she saw other crew members reaching for their heads, experiencing the same phenomenon. The energy field surrounding the station pulsed with increasing intensity. "High Commander Zextal is hailing us again," Rodriguez reported, fighting through his obvious discomfort. "Put them through." Sarah ordered, straightening her posture despite the strange sensations coursing through her body. The High Commander's image appeared, but this time there was no trace of condescension in their bearing. Director Chen, you must shut down that device immediately. You have no comprehension of the forces you're dealing with. I don't think we could shut it down even if we wanted to, Sarah replied. But I'm more interested in why you're so afraid of it. Before Zextal could respond, the strange voice spoke again, this time addressing the entire station, and through their open channel, the Concordat fleet as well. The children of Earth, heavy PRVN, themselves worthy. The legacy of the ARCHITTs, AWAKANs. Dr. Patel's voice came through the comm, excited but controlled. Director, I'm accessing the Architect's historical archives. The Concordat, they weren't always what they are now. The original alliance was formed around principles of mutual aid and protection. 3,000 years ago, Sarah continued, watching Zextal's image carefully. The Concordat faced a crisis. A hostile force from outside the galaxy threatened everything you had built. In your desperation to survive, you began forcing other species to join your alliance, believing that only absolute unity under your control could save civilization. The High Commander's scales shifted to a deeper hue. How could you possibly know this? Because the architects were there, Sarah replied. They chose not to intervene directly, but they watched. They watched as the Concordat transformed from protectors into conquerors. They watched as you justified each act of subjugation as necessary for the greater good, and they decided that when the time came to pass on their legacy, it would go to a species that understood the value of both strength and compassion. The command deck hummed with energy as more information poured through the station's systems. Lieutenant Rodriguez's console lit up with new data. Director, the Architect ships are broadcasting to every Concordat world simultaneously. They're sharing the historical records, everything the Architects witnessed. Sarah could imagine the chaos this would cause throughout Concordat space. Generations of citizens have been raised on stories of their natural right to rule, their superior wisdom and judgment. Now they would learn the truth, that their empire had been built on fear, not destiny. Your people deserve to know their true history, Sarah said to Zextal. And they deserve the chance to choose their own path forward. The external threat you feared never materialized. But in preparing for it, you became something else, something the founders of the Concordat would never have recognized. The High Commander was silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, their voice carried the weight of realization. You could destroy us, yet you offer. What? Forgiveness. We offer partnership, Sarah corrected. The Architects didn't choose humanity to replace the Concordat. They chose us to help restore balance. Their technology, their knowledge, it's not meant to dominate. It's meant to unite. As if in response to her words, new information began flowing through the station's systems. The Architect ships were not just a defense fleet. They were seed ships, carrying the means to rebuild the network of stations that had once connected the galaxy. Each station would serve as a hub of learning, of cultural exchange, of technological advancement that would benefit all species equally. Director, Maya called out, her tactical display showing movement among the Concordat fleet. Their ships are powering down weapons, all except. She paused, frowning at the readings. 3 vessels are breaking formation, charging weapons. Sarah wasn't surprised. Change never came easily, and there would always be those who preferred the old ways of power and control. But before she could respond, something remarkable happened. The remaining Concordat ships moved to surround their rebellious companions. High Commander Zextal's voice rang out not just through the command deck, but across all channels. In the name of the true Concordat, stand down. We will not compound millennia of mistakes with one final act of foolish pride. The 3 ships hesitated, then slowly powered down their weapons. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, even as she recognized that this was just the beginning. The real challenges and opportunities lay ahead. High Commander, she said, I propose we form a joint commission. Representatives from Earth, the Concordat, and all other spacefaring species. Together, we can study the architect's legacy and determine how best to use it for the benefit of all. Zextal's scales shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, perhaps one reserved for moments of profound change. Agreed. Though I warn you, Director Chen, not all within the Concordat will accept this transition peacefully. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, Sarah replied, thinking of humanity's own long, troubled history. But that's exactly why the architects chose this moment, chose us. Not because we're perfect, but because we understand that true strength lies in rising above our fears and reaching for something better. As if in response to her words, the architect ships began to move, taking up positions that would form the foundation of a new defensive network. Not a weapon of war, but a shield behind which a new era of cooperation could begin. Dr. Patel's voice cut through the command deck speakers, filled with awe. Director, the artifact. It's showing me things. Images, knowledge. I think I understand what this place is now. The architects. They were the first civilization to achieve interstellar travel. They seeded the galaxy with these stations, waiting for species that matched certain criteria. What criteria? Sarah asked, even as new understanding began flooding her own consciousness. Creativity. Resilience. The ability to face overwhelming odds without surrendering our principles, Patel replied. They left their legacy not to the most advanced species, but to those who would use it wisely. The Concordat ships had ceased firing, but maintained their attack formation. On the tactical display, Maya noticed power readings from their weapons were actually increasing. They're not going to let this happen, Director. Whatever this inheritance is, they'll destroy us before they let humanity claim it. Sarah nodded, processing the information that was now streaming directly into her mind. The architects hadn't just left technology. They had left a mandate, a responsibility to guide the galaxy's younger species toward cooperation rather than conquest. The Concordat's aggressive expansion and subjugation of lesser species was exactly what the architects had sought to prevent. High Commander, Sarah addressed Zextal's image. Your ship's weapons can't penetrate this energy field. The more power you direct at it, the stronger it becomes. I suggest we talk about what happens next. You suggest. Zextal's scales darkened with anger. You are children playing with forces beyond your comprehension. The Concordat has maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not allow that order to be disrupted by. The High Commander's words cut off as new ships began appearing around Station 217. Massive vessels of clearly ancient design, emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. The station's crew watched in amazement as vessel after vessel materialized, each one dwarfing the largest Concordat warships. The inheritance includes a defense fleet, Dr. Patil announced, his voice filled with wonder. The architects didn't just leave us knowledge. They left us the means to protect it. The strange voice spoke once more. The sword of the ERC takes its pays it is to humanity. Use it with wisdom. Sarah felt the weight of this responsibility settling onto her shoulders. In the span of an hour, humanity had gone from being a minor power to inheriting the legacy of the galaxy's first civilization. The knowledge flowing into her mind showed her both the potential and the dangers this power represented. High Commander, she addressed Zextal again. I repeat my suggestion that we discuss what happens next. The architects chose humanity not because we're perfect, but because we understand what it means to struggle, to face opposition, and still maintain our principles. We don't want war with the Concordat. We want a chance to prove that their faith in us was justified. The command deck fell silent as they waited for Zextal's response. The fate of not just Station 217, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The architect's technology could either become a force for positive change or spark a war that would consume countless worlds. Sarah Chen, director of what had just become humanity's most important installation, stood ready to face whatever came next. The real test wasn't in receiving this power. It was in how they would choose to use it. High Commander Zextal's response came in the form of a single ship-breaking formation. The massive vessel, easily identified as the Concordat flagship, moved slowly forward until it hung suspended between the two fleets. The ancient architect vessels on one side, the Concordat warships on the other. Director Chen, Zextal's voice carried a new tone, one that Sarah had never heard from a Concordat official before. Uncertainty. You speak of discussion, yet you now command a fleet that could reduce our forces to atoms. Why should we trust in humanity's restraint? The knowledge flowing through Sarah's mind was becoming easier to process, organizing itself into comprehensible patterns. Through it, she understood something crucial. The architects hadn't just been testing humanity's strength. They had been testing their judgment. Because, she replied, if we wanted to destroy your fleet, we would have already done so. She gestured to Maya, who brought up a tactical display showing the true capabilities of the architect vessels. These ships aren't just weapons platforms. They're carrying something far more valuable. Truth. Station 217, once a simple research outpost, had become the birthplace of a galactic renaissance. And humanity, so long dismissed as upstart children, would help guide the way forward, not through force, but through the very qualities that had drawn the architect's attention in the first place: resilience, creativity, and the unwavering belief that tomorrow could be better than today. In the 3 days since Station 217's transformation, the galaxy had erupted into chaos, but not the kind anyone had expected. As Sarah Chen stood in the newly activated Architect Command Center, watching holographic displays of events unfolding across thousands of worlds, she witnessed something extraordinary: a renaissance of hope. The response from younger species has been overwhelming, Maya reported, scrolling through diplomatic communications. The Talarians, the Vex Collective, even the Nomad clusters, they're all requesting to join the Joint Commission. They see this as their chance to finally have a voice in galactic affairs. Dr. Patel, who had barely slept since the activation, looked up from his research station. His eyes were tired but bright with excitement. And they should. The architect's archives show that many of these minor species have unique perspectives that could be crucial for understanding their technology. The Talarians, for instance, process quantum information in ways we never imagined possible. Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to a different display, one showing growing unrest in several Concordat core worlds. Not everyone sees change as an opportunity, she observed. Lieutenant Rodriguez, what's the latest from the diplomatic channels? Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console, bringing up new data. High Commander Zextal is facing significant opposition from the Concordat's military council. 3 fleet admirals have declared the agreement with us invalid, claiming Zextal exceeded their authority. They're afraid, Maya said, her security training making her watch for potential threats. For millennia, they were the undisputed masters of known space. Now they're being asked to sit as equals with species they once dominated. The architect interface hummed softly, responding to Sarah's thoughts before she could voice them. New displays materialized, showing strategic analyses of the developing situation. The technology was incredible, not just in its power, but in its ability to understand and anticipate human needs. Director, Dr. Patel called out suddenly, his voice urgent. I found something in the archives, something about why the architects chose this specific moment to activate their legacy. He paused, double-checking his findings. They didn't just leave because they'd achieved their goals. They left because they detected something coming, something that would take millennia to arrive. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The threat the Concordat feared, it was real. Yes and no, Patel replied. The architects detected a wave of something, not hostile entities, but a fundamental shift in the galaxy's quantum structure. They knew it would either destroy civilization as we know it or transform it into something greater. That's why they left their legacy, not to one species, but to all of us. We need each other to survive what's coming. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared across the command center. Maya's tactical display lit up with new contacts. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, Concordat signatures, but not aligned with High Commander Zextal's forces. The rebel Concordat fleet materialized around the station. 15 capital ships and their escorts, all weapons charged. Their commander's transmission came through without waiting for acknowledgement. "This is Admiral Kren of the True Concordat," a harsh voice announced. "The abomination you have awakened ends now. Surrender control of the Architect vessels, or we will reduce your station to atoms." Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of the moment. The Architect technology was feeding her tactical analyses, showing multiple solutions, including ones that could eliminate the threat instantly. But that wasn't why humanity had been chosen. "Admiral Kren," she responded, her voice calm but firm. "Before you fire, I suggest you look at your long-range sensors. The quantum wave the Architects detected. It's no longer millennia away. Your own scientists must have detected the changes in subspace. What you call an abomination is our only hope of surviving what comes next." She nodded to Dr. Patel, who transmitted the relevant data from the Architect archives. On her display, Sarah could see the rebel ship's sensors processing the information. The quantum disturbances were undeniable, and growing stronger. "You're lying," Kren snarled, but there was uncertainty in their voice. "This is a deception to protect your control of the legacy." "The legacy isn't meant to be controlled," Sarah replied. "It's meant to be shared. Right now, your weapons are locked on this station, but the Architect vessels haven't moved to intercept. Ask yourself why. Look at their capabilities, then ask yourself why they remain passive in the face of your threat." The command center was silent as everyone waited for Kren's response. Sarah continued, "The Architects didn't leave us weapons to dominate each other. They left us tools to face something far more challenging, the evolution of the galaxy itself. We can face it together, or we can destroy each other and guarantee our mutual extinction." New alarms sounded, but these were different. Dr. Patel's eyes widened as he read the incoming data. "Director, the quantum wave. Our preparations must have attracted its attention. It's accelerating. We have months, not years." Sarah looked at the tactical display, at the rebel ships still poised to attack, and made a decision. "Admiral Kren, I'm transmitting full access to the Architect archives to your ships. No conditions, no demands. See for yourself what we're facing. Then make your choice. We'll face the consequences either way." The command center crew watched as the data streamed to the rebel fleet. Minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, Admiral Kren's voice returned, changed. "The data. It correlates with anomalies our scientists have been tracking for decades. We thought they were random fluctuations, but this changes everything," Sarah finished. "The Architects chose humanity not because we're superior, but because we're willing to take chances on trust and cooperation, even with those who might be enemies. Your weapons are still armed, Admiral. What happens next is your choice." Another long moment passed. Then, slowly, the rebel ship's weapons powered down. Admiral Kren's image appeared on the main display, their bearings still proud but no longer hostile. "It seems, Director Chen, that we have much to discuss." Sarah nodded, relief mixing with determination. The immediate crisis was averted, but the real challenges were just beginning. The quantum wave was coming, bringing changes none of them could fully comprehend. But facing it together, they at least had a chance. "Yes, Admiral," she agreed. "We all do." 6 months after the confrontation with Admiral Kren's fleet, Station 217 had transformed beyond recognition. What was once a solitary research outpost had become the heart of the largest cooperative endeavor in galactic history. The station now served as the central hub for what the combined species called the Unity Project, their joint effort to face the approaching quantum wave. Sarah Chen stood in the vastly expanded command center, surrounded by representatives from 200 different species. The room hummed with dozens of languages, all seamlessly translated by architect technology. Even former enemies worked side by side, their past conflicts forgotten in the face of a challenge that threatened them all. The wavefront will reach the outer systems in 17 hours, Dr. Patil announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. The holographic display above them showed the approaching phenomenon, a cascade of shifting quantum states that defied conventional physics. All evacuation protocols are complete. The designated systems are ready for the first test. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. They had spent months preparing, combining architect technology with innovations from every participating species. The Tellarians had contributed their quantum consciousness research, the Vex Collective their understanding of dimensional mechanics, and even the proudest Concordat scientists had shared secrets they'd kept hidden for millennia. Director, Maya called out from her station. High Commander Zextel's fleet is in position. The defense grid is fully operational. The defense grid was a marvel of cooperation. Thousands of ships from former rival powers, now linked through architect interfaces into a single coordinated force. Not to fight, but to protect the worlds that would face the wave first. The architects knew this was coming. Sarah addressed the gathered representatives. They didn't leave because they were finished with the galaxy. They left because they knew we would need to face this challenge ourselves, not as single species, but as a unified civilization. Lieutenant Rodriguez's console lit up with incoming transmissions. All participating worlds are reporting ready, Director. The quantum resonance networks are online. What they were attempting had never been done before, using modified architect technology to not just survive the quantum wave, but to guide its effects. The simulation suggested it could either destroy them or elevate their civilization to a new level of existence. Final reports from the research teams, Dr. Patil announced. The wave appears to be conscious in a way we barely understand. It's not just changing reality. It's examining it, testing it. The architects believed it was the galaxy's own evolutionary process, a natural phenomenon that occurs every few million years. Sarah touched the neural interface that now linked her directly to the station's systems. Around her, others did the same. Humans, Concordat, and representatives from every participating species, all connected through the architect network. They would face this moment together. Wavefront approaching outer defense line, Maya reported. Impact in 5 minutes. The command center fell silent. On the main display, they could see the quantum wave, a shimmering curtain of possibility that defied visual description. Behind it, space itself seemed to change, operating under new laws of physics that their instruments could barely detect. All stations, initialize quantum resonance protocols, Sarah ordered. The station hummed as unprecedented amounts of energy began flowing through systems designed eons ago for exactly this moment. Remember your training. Don't fight the changes. Guide them, like we practiced. The wave hit the first line of sensor buoys. Data streamed in, showing reality itself beginning to shift and transform. But instead of chaos, there was a pattern. The combined consciousness of hundreds of species working through the architect network, helping to shape the changes. It's working, Dr. Patel breathed, watching as the first worlds passed through the wavefront. The resonance network is holding. We're not just surviving the wave. We're becoming part of it. Through her neural link, Sarah could feel it. The wave wasn't destroying the old reality. It was elevating it, allowing matter and consciousness to exist in new ways they had only theorized about. The architects hadn't left them weapons or tools of conquest. They had left them the means to evolve. Secondary effects cascading through the network, Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with awe. The quantum entanglement is spreading faster than predicted. It's beautiful. Sarah watched as the wave continued its advance, transforming everything in its path. But thanks to their preparations, thanks to the unprecedented cooperation between former enemies, those transformations were controlled, guided, even enhanced by the combined will of countless minds working as one. The architect interface showed her the bigger picture. This wasn't the first time this had happened. The quantum wave was part of the galaxy's natural cycle, a forcing function that either destroyed civilizations or elevated them to new levels of existence. The architects had faced it themselves, eons ago, and had prepared the way for those who would come after. Final wave front approaching Station 217. Maya announced. Impact in 30 seconds. Sarah looked around the command center at the gathered representatives of so many species. Former enemies stood shoulder to shoulder, their minds linked through technology left by those who had faced this moment before them. This was why humanity had been chosen, not for their strength or their technology, but for their ability to bring others together, to face impossible odds with hope instead of fear. Together, she said simply, and felt the response echo through the neural network. 1,000 voices, 1,000 species, all united in purpose. The wave hit, and reality changed. When the transformation was complete, Station 217 remained, but it was no longer just a station. It had become a nexus point for a new kind of civilization, one that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states, able to perceive and interact with dimensions they had never dreamed possible. Sarah opened her eyes to a galaxy transformed. The gathered representatives were still there, but they were more than their physical forms now. The quantum wave hadn't destroyed them. It had fulfilled the architect's final legacy, elevating them to a new stage of existence. Status report, she called out, her voice carrying new harmonics that spoke of the changes they had all undergone. All participating systems reporting successful transition. Rodriguez answered. The quantum resonance network is stable. We did it.